Whether it's a ghostly haunting, a horrible history, or an unsolved mystery lost to time, these haunting locations are bound to send a shiver down your spine. Let's get right into it as we cover the top 10 terrifying places in Hong Kong you should never visit. Before we get into today's video though guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, Magellan TV. This documentary streaming service has full-length documentaries and docu-series on so many different topics, and there really is something for everyone. They cover things like science and nature, lifestyle, arts, true crime, ancient history, the list goes on, and I promise they have so much stuff you're bound to find something up your alley. And they're also constantly adding new titles every week, so there's always something new, which is one thing that I really do love about their service, and it's something that always keeps me coming back. My recent watch on Magellan TV was a title called China's Long March into Space. This documentary is a nice quick watch at like 45 minutes, which is great for me, and it's all about China's blast off into space. It gives us insight into some of their space agency's plans for manned missions to Mars, more trips to the moon, even trips to asteroids. It's all about the leaps that they are covering when it comes to space technology and space exploration, which is incredibly fascinating. It even shows us the grueling preparation into the launch of China's Shenzhou 7 spaceship. This is honestly a pretty rare insight that until now we didn't really get to see a lot of, and Magellan TV does an incredible job of covering it. Magellan TV is now offering membership gift cards that are perfect for the holiday season, but are also going to be available all year round. I always say that the gift of an experience or like a membership is always so much better than a gift that's gonna like clutter your home, which is exactly what makes this the perfect gift for your loved one. Not to mention that a Magellan TV membership is the perfect last minute gift for all of you procrastinators out there, alright? The holidays are this weekend. Make sure you click the link down below in the description box to get a 30-day free trial to check out just how wonderful Magellan TV is, and make sure you check out their membership gift cards for the holiday season or any special occasion that you have coming up. Alright, let's get into this list. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Tat Tak School. This school has remained abandoned since 1988, and for fair reason. The city in which the school resides has a dark history that is said to include a few World War era massacres and all of the atrocities involving that sort of thing. It is said that the remains from some of these horrible acts were buried in the hill next to the school. Shortly before the school closed in 1988, the headmistress took her own life in one of the bathrooms while wearing a red dress, supposedly leaving behind a spirit that appears to people dressed in red. The creepiest story relating to this haunting happened in 2011 when students were exploring the abandoned school. While here, one of the students saw the lady in red, which led to them all running for the hills, but as they began to run away, one of the students began showing strange, violent behavior that had never been seen before. An ambulance ended up being called because of the entire ordeal. This is all to say that this school appears as just a broken down, forgotten about place, but there's clearly something more sinister here. In our number 9 spot today, we have 31 Granville Road. If you're a person who is interested in true crime, you might be familiar with this place already because it is the site of the infamous and horrifying Hello Kitty killing. Back in 1999, a 23-year-old woman named Fan Man Yi was working as a host at a nightclub and needed money to help support herself and her young son when she made the decision to steal the wallet of one of the clients of her workplace. She was caught for the stealing, and while she returned the money, the man demanded that she also pay him a steep fine in return for the action. She said she just needed some time to gather the cost he was asking for, but unfortunately just a few days later, this man, with the help of some accomplices, would kidnap Fan and keep her locked up for a month. She sadly suffered incredibly horrific things and later succumbed to her injuries and passed away. The address of where this all took place was an apartment building at 31 Granville Road. In 2012, the apartment was demolished, and in 2016, a new hotel was built on the site, but even still, people have reported being haunted by the ghost of this young woman. Whether haunted or not, hearing the details of this story, it totally makes sense why people would get an eerie feeling just being around that area at all. In our number 8 spot today, we have Dragon Lodge. Dragon Lodge sits on the Peak, which is one of the most expensive areas in Hong Kong for real estate, and while that means that it comes with a heavy price tag, it is also rich with terrifying tales. Dragon Lodge is said to have had many owners throughout the years, the first of which being the man who built it, but in 1920 he went bankrupt and was forced to sell it. During World War II, the lodge was occupied by Japanese soldiers, some of which are said to have taken the lives of Catholic nuns in the front courtyard. By the time the 1980s rolled around, Dragon Lodge was already referred to as one of Hong Kong's most haunted places, but despite the rumblings, the property was purchased again and there were plans for some retail development. These plans fell through, however, because when construction workers began to do some work, they too became convinced of its paranormal nature. The workers continually reported the sounds of a crying child coming from the mansion and refused to continue to work on it. Since then, the mansion has remained completely untouched. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Sai Ying Pun Community Complex. This complex was first built in 1892, but its original purpose was to house medical staff. This was until the Second World War took place, and during this time it is said to have turned into quite a gruesome execution ground, and after this, the site later became a psychiatric hospital, and after it was abandoned, it was badly damaged when trespassers set fires in it, really just setting the stage for an exceptionally eerie location. In 1998, the building was given a new life once again, and it was turned into a community complex, but now there are plenty of strange reports coming from the building. While they preserved the granite exterior, inside people have reported hearing the sounds of a woman crying, mysterious footsteps. There have been alleged sightings of a devil-like man wearing traditional clothing roaming around the halls. There's said to be a ghost that bursts into flames. This is all to say that there are plenty of ghosts here. While they are trying to do their best to rebrand this haunted location, the nickname High Street Haunted House hasn't quite escaped it yet. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Lui Seng Chun. Back in 2012, this location was turned into a Chinese medicine and healthcare center for Baptist University, but prior to that, it sat empty for decades due to the haunting tales that come from within. It is said that there were plans to remodel the building a while ago, back in the 80s, but those working on the building, construction and cleaning crew alike, began to fall ill one by one. At first I thought that there were probably just some toxic chemicals in the building or something like that, but it wasn't the same illness. Things were different, and sometimes it wasn't illness, it was a fatal accident. Things were also disappearing, and this all led to the work on the building being stopped. Some of the workers even reported seeing figures, like a group of children playing soccer, but instead of a ball, it was a head. Sometimes at night, the upper level floors would light up on their own and shadowy figures could be seen roaming around the hallways. In our number 5 spot today, we have Bride's Pool. While Bride's Pool is gorgeous, it's a rock pool with waterfalls surrounding it. It gets its name and haunting story from a tragic accident. Legend goes that 4 men were carrying a bride-to-be to her groom's village on a chair, and to get to the village they needed to pass over the pool. As they pass over one of the waterfalls, one of the men slipped on a rock and all of them fell below into the pool, sadly passing away in the tragic accident. Now the bride, having never made it to her groom, awaits at the bottom of the pool, waiting for her groom to return. There have also been reports of people taking their lives here, and in 1982, at one point, there were even human remains discovered that turned out to belong to a man who was killed by his fiancée. The horrible stories clearly just don't end, and they even extend up to the road that sits above the pool, which now has the nickname of the Deadly Curve, based on the high number of accidents that resulted into fatalities. Maybe it's just the bad luck of the pool. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Murray House. This is another one of these spots that now has a life far past its haunting history. The Murray House is now the home to restaurants that sit on the waterfront and places to shop, but it once was the officers' quarters of the Murray Barracks in 1846. Flash forward a bit to the Japanese occupation, and this building was seeing horrifying crimes carried out against the citizens of Hong Kong. From here, stories of ghosts and hauntings at the site became so bad that the government actually ordered for there to be 2 exorcisms there. One in 1963 and one in 1974, and they were aimed at freeing these souls who were clearly stuck here. Eventually the building was dismantled and all of the items in the house were moved into storage for a while before, in 2000, it was decided to move and rebuild the structure to Stanley, where it still stands now. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Koo Terrace. This location was first built in 1915 by a wealthy family who was involved in the silk trade. The same family lived here until World War II, when they were forced to flee the city. Once abandoned by the family, soldiers began to seize property in the area to hold people and items, and this specific location was used to house women who were being held by the soldiers. These soldiers did horrific things to these women, some leading to the women passing away, and since these incredibly atrocious acts, the terrace has constantly had stories coming from it that tell the tales of ghosts wandering the house. Some passerbys even hear screaming coming from the home, home and see strange shadows in the windows. Back in 2003, a group of students decided to try and camp out for a night in the haunted house in the hopes of seeing a ghost, but in the end they got a lot more than they bargained for. Police ended up being called when one of the students claimed to be possessed by a spirit and ended up needing to be hospitalized. In the end, the home sat completely vacant for 18 years until recently, when the current owners expressed their plans to restore the building. In our number 2 spot today, we have Solo Pun. This abandoned village has a name that means locked compass, and this name comes from the reports that compasses very creepily seem to stop working nearby and in this village. The exact reason for the abandonment of this village is unknown. There are plenty of stories, however. Some believe that everyone went missing overnight, others believe that the villagers died on the way to a wedding in a boating accident and the survivors couldn't stand to remain in the village. Whatever the reason, the village appears as if one day everybody just up and left, never to be seen again. This is why this spot is now a heavily visited area. It definitely gives that eerie, uneasy feeling when you're around it. If you were to take a trip there, the closest road is about 3 hours away, however, so you'll find yourself hiking for quite a good chunk of that trip. In our number 1 spot today, we have the White House Compound. Also known as the Victoria Road Detention Center, this place is familiar to many as it was used as a place to hold political prisoners and those suspected of spying during the 1967 riots. This means that it was also a place where many people were treated horribly, harmed, and executed. Prisoners were held in tiny cells under horrible conditions, and some even were held in solitary confinement for months on end. After the end of the riots, the place was abandoned, and it was forgotten about by many, except for those who knew what kind of horrors happened inside. From the time it was abandoned up until quite recently, this place was unmarked. There weren't signs, and it wasn't even placed on maps. That was until 2018, when it was converted into an overseas campus for the University of Chicago Booth School of Business as a way to redevelop the site and hopefully give it a much brighter future. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlovsky, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!